What's it going to take for you to make this the best year ever? Just think for a second, what one thing that, if that one thing happened this year, I could get to December 31st, look back and think, wow, this was the best year ever. There's several things in my life that are kind of setting up 2016 to truly be the best year ever. I'm going to share this with you guys in more detail later in the year. But in 2015, I was awarded a grant. And this grant is going to allow me to do a few things that I've been really wanting to do. One of those things is to take my kids who are adopted from Ethiopia back to Ethiopia with me to visit their family members. And it's just something that's always been in our hearts that we want to do. We're building up to it. We're talking about it. We're praying about it. When we shared it with our kids that we won this grant that's going to provide the finances to do that, you know, there's tears. There's a nervousness. There's a fear. There's an excitement. There's all this wrapped up together. And it's just going to be a really, really significant time for me and for our family as I look out. There's about 4 other things that I feel like God is leading us to, and they're kind of been building for years, honestly. And it's kind of looking like 2016 is going to be like this best year ever, honestly. In my heart and my mind, it's actually producing a little bit of anxiety in me because I've got a lot of expectations and a lot of hopes, and I hope these things happen. And I don't want to be disappointed. And I want to make sure that I don't lose focus and I keep, persistent on this. So, during this year, there's going to be a lot of things that you will do. But there's one thing that you have to do. And so today, for the next few minutes, I want to talk to you about that one thing. Like, what's the one thing that is going to make this year the best year ever for you? Now, look, the one thing is going to be different for all of us, different for me than it is for you. There's one thing it's kind of based on your life, it's based on your relationships, and it's on your marriage and your family and your situation and the life that God's called you to live. And I can't really figure out that one thing for you, but I do know that it's something that you have in your heart, in your mind. It's something that's already there. It's not the first time you've thought about it. In fact, some of you, if you got focused on that one thing, whatever that one thing is, you could be in a better place in the next 4 months. You could be in the better place by summer. And certainly by the end of the year, if you focused on that one thing, like your life would change dramatically. You know what it is already, honestly, because it's something that's big enough that it hadn't just presented itself right now. It's something that's like in your heart, on your mind. It's something maybe you focused on before last year at this time. It just never happened. You got distracted. But I just want you to fast forward to December 31st, 2016, and think, if this one thing was resolved, if this one thing was different, if this one thing, then this would have been the best year ever. And I'm not just talking about the present. I'm kind of talking about those things that you fast forward to, 5 years down the road, 2021, and because this year was invested the way it was, you look back and you say, man, this was the year that was the best year ever, because this was the year that this big thing in my life, we got some progress on, or we accomplished, or we resolved. It could be something like a habit that we just need to break. It could be something that just says, hey, that's been nagging you. It's not healthy for you. But you go back to it even though you don't want to, because it's all you know. And that's the comfort that you receive. And you got to figure out, hey, this year I want to break that because I know that's not good for me. I know it's not going to serve me well. I know it's not serving my marriage well, my family well, or anything else, my finances well. Maybe it's a goal that you need to accomplish, that you have set out before. And you said, you know what, I want to do this. I'm serious this time. And for whatever reason in the past, you've just not followed through on it. But this year, it needs to be the priority. Maybe it's a project that you need to complete. I mean, because we probably all have 3 or 4 projects that are at various stages of incompletion. And they kind of dangle over our heads like, oh. And you just need to get it done this year. Maybe, honestly, maybe it's a hurt that you need peace with. Maybe it's a relationship that you need to heal or mend. Honestly, maybe it's a relationship that you need to distance yourself from because it's not serving you well. Maybe it's a debt you need to retire, and you know, you've thought about it 100 times before, you just never prioritized it, never got serious about it. And you're just used to kind of living that way. Maybe you just need to get real clear, real confident, and real secure on your relationship as a human with the God of the universe. Because you've been kind of flirting with church and God, and you kind of think you're around the topic and you like where you're at, but you've never said, hey, what is it that I need to do? What has God called me to do? What does it mean to get really clear about my relationship with God? Your thing may not be on that little list, but I got a feeling if I were to sit down and talk with you and just kind of spend a few minutes thinking about, there's something that's kind of hanging over you. There's something that's part of your life. There's something that this year, if you don't get anything else accomplished, you got to do this one thing to make this your best year ever. I don't know, you might be like me. I've got kind of 8 priority categories that I've kind of set out for my life. They're big categories, huge categories. And I just kind of tend to start thinking about one thing in each of those categories. And it's kind of cool for me to think about this because I've shared this with you before. I got this kind of planning arrow, and I think about it a little bit. But we got real serious about 17 years ago in our life. And we just said, hey, these are the areas that we want to invest our life in. 17 years ago, I wrote this down. I just want you to know I'm committed to this. And we've been committed to it long before, the need has presented itself. And now my parents are in good health and all that stuff. But, they're making plans for the next 15 years. I tell them, you're 75, you're starting your 4th quarter, right? The 4th quarter, the game's won and lost in the 4th quarter, right? All right, so, that's kind of, maybe it's that one thing. I don't know. Maybe you got 8 things. Maybe you got 4 things. Maybe you got 3. But here's the deal. I want to kind of focus in on one verse that's really going to help you regardless of what your one thing is, regardless of what it is that's going to make this year the best year ever for you. And I want to kind of lead you to this verse. I want to kind of give you the background around it. It's a real simple verse, but it's something that will keep you focused on making this the best year ever. So there's this passage. I read this book years and years and years ago. It's a book in the Bible called Nehemiah. And Nehemiah, I've taught through it a couple times here in the last several years. But I read a book about the book of Nehemiah called Hand Me Another Brick. It's by Chuck Swindoll, and I would just encourage everybody to go out. It's an older book. Go out, grab a copy, work through the book of Nehemiah this year as we start out. But it's in this book of Nehemiah, main character, Nehemiah, surprisingly. And Nehemiah, this is his setting. He is a cupbearer to the king. And Nehemiah is an Israelite, and during the Babylonian exile, he got exiled, all right, and separated from his homeland. And or his family did, and he has grown up in captivity, okay? So he's never even known what home was like. He's just heard of his homeland. And now the Babylonian Empire has gone away, and now the Persian Empire has come in, and there's a king Artaxerxes. And King Artaxerxes has a different kind of perception about how he rules the world. But Nehemiah finds himself as a cupbearer to the king. Now, when you're a cupbearer to the king, some of you know this, but a lot of you might not. What you do is you taste test everything for the king. You taste test everything that he drinks. So you're a really important person. You're make sure the king doesn't get poisoned. And you're also expendable. You get that? Like, you're really important, but not that important. I mean, you're really important. If you do your job well, you might die, but at least you keep the king from dying. And so it's kind of this trust relationship, but you're still kind of a slave. So that's the situation that Nehemiah is in. And Nehemiah gets word from people from his country, from Jerusalem, a place that he's probably never been, but a place that is near and dear to him as an Israelite. He's heard stories of the past, and he hears what's going on in Jerusalem, that the wall around Jerusalem has been broken down. And essentially, he gets a burden for the city. I think it's not something that just comes about humanly, just from human passion or human desire or ingenuity or leadership or great thinking. I think this burden is from the Lord. How else would a person who's never seen Jerusalem, who's never been to Jerusalem, be this committed to its success? And I think that's what God does in our hearts. That's how he uses our hearts to focus our lives. He burdens us about certain things. And so when you're burdened by certain things, that's a weight that kind of weighs you down, but it's also a gift, because it's a gift of a vision for the future of your life that God wants to lead you to. Don't ignore the burdens on your heart. They are one way that God leads us and directs us to focus on not just 100 things, but narrow it down to the one thing. Well, Nehemiah, this is his one thing. I got to figure out how to help my city. And so he goes before the king and he asks for time off. Now, you don't just go, you're a slave. You don't just go before the king and ask for time off. But Nehemiah prays a prayer and he says, God, just give me success, give me favor in the king's eyes today. And he goes before the king, and the king says, hey, what's going on? I hear that you're troubled. I know, I can see it on your face and your countenance. What's happening? He said, I'm here serving you, but I really need to do something about Jerusalem. Amen, that's right. You better pay attention. Yikes. I hope I don't get electrocuted up here, all right? We've got some real batteries now, right? And so he says, King, this is what I need time off. I need to go rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. I need to help my city. And the king says, well, what do you need? He says, well, kind of lays out the list. I need these resources. I need this. And the king basically signs off and says, you got it. Well, he heads back to the city, which is a miracle in and of itself, with, the stamp of approval from the king. And he gets to the city, and I can't imagine this for Nehemiah, but he just he tours the city. He sees the condition. And essentially, it's hard for us to put our minds and our hearts around this, but the city in that day and age, the number one thing that had to happen for the city to function, to be a source of hope and community and joy and progress, is for the city to be protected, for the wall around the city to protect its citizens from anybody and everybody that would want to harm it. Well, the walls have been destroyed for years. In fact, nobody in the city had ever lived in that city with the walls built. So everybody there, all they knew was just kind of chaos. I don't know what it is for our cities today, but you think about pretty much it's an economic driver today. I think of a city like Detroit, even though I've rarely been there. But just what I hear about Detroit right now, like the walls are down. The walls are broken down in Detroit. Since the auto industry kind of collapsed and that kind of, you're just like, it's just a dearth. Nobody wants to be there. Nobody's moving to Detroit. It's a broken city. And that's how Jerusalem was. And that's all the people ever knew. And on top of that, there's kind of warlords that kind of created their own little sub-governments, and they had the power, and they would come in basically whenever they wanted to the city, and they would take what they needed, and then they would go on. And so they used and abused, and they basically victimized the people in the city over and over and over again. They were experts at keeping the poor poor because that's where they gained their power from. And so there's a lot of people that were very desperate inside the city, but there's a lot of people around the city that took advantage of the situation, and they liked the way the city was broken down. And so Nehemiah kind of comes into this situation, and he evaluates. He's like, you know what? There's a lot of things wrong with this city. There's all kinds of chaos. There's leadership problems and all this. But there's one thing that has to get done first. We got to solve the wall first. And that's what he focuses on. And he kind of rallies the people around him, and he takes a good evaluation. He makes a good plan, and people start to say, yeah, let's do this. And they start making progress. And they build the wall. And they begin to build. And all of a sudden, they're making enough progress that the people who are thriving on the broken city, and they're feeding off victimizing the people in the city over and over again, those people, they're a little troubled now. Hey, wait a minute. What's going on here, Nehemiah? What are you doing here? And so there starts to become challenges to Nehemiah's, one big thing that he has to get done. And the guy that's mainly here is this guy named Sanballat. And he basically says, look, we got to stop the progress on this wall. And so he started rumors. And rumors started flying around about what's Nehemiah's intentions. Nehemiah wants to be the king of Jerusalem. And he starts throwing out all that stuff. On top of that, he sends spies to infiltrate Nehemiah's ranks, and he starts to try to, distract the people and discourage them. On top of that, he started to, send out bandits to kind of raid people who are working on the wall, so much so that Nehemiah had to kind of shift target and say, hey, half the workforce is going to work on the wall, the other half is going to be armed protectors, keeping them safe while they're working. And so this got really ugly really fast. In a matter of days, weeks, Nehemiah went from kind of a local hero to a local target. And the people went from energized to, I don't know if I'm up for this. I didn't know working on the wall meant my life was going to be in danger. The thing about Sanballat's plan, though, was that no matter what he tried, the wall kept going up. And so then he started to change tactics. He started saying, I'm not going to attack Nehemiah and his people anymore. Nehemiah, we need to sit down and meet. We need to talk about this. And that's where we kind of pick up the story in Nehemiah chapter 6. This is what it says. When the word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, the Arab, and the rest of our enemies, that I had rebuilt the wall, and not a gap was left in it, though up to that time I had not set the doors and the gates. So at this point, all the walls are finished. Huge task, huge engineering feat to take rubble and rebuild walls out of it. So the walls are complete, but there's still gaps because the gates aren't set. Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message. Hey, come, let's meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono. Now, if you're going to a plain of Ono, you know something's up. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know where that's at. But, he's just saying, hey, Nehemiah, okay, hey, let's just talk. Let's talk about this. What are you trying to accomplish here? Meet with me. The wall's almost finished. All of this. He said, hey, let's do dinner. Hey, can we do lunch together? Maybe an early breakfast or just coffee. Let's sit down and talk because we need to figure this out. Enough with this, enough with this adversity. Just me and you, one-on-one. Let's do this. But Nehemiah knew this. They were scheming to harm him. They were scheming to make sure that this one thing didn't happen. They just wanted to do anything they could to stop progress on the wall. Because they knew if they could stop progress on the wall, if they could stop Nehemiah, then the progress would come to a halt. If the progress came to a halt, they could re-victimize victims over and over again. So Nehemiah sent messengers to them with this reply. And look, this reply is what I want you to grab hold of today, okay? This reply is the one thing that I want you to repeat over and over again this year. This reply is going to make this one thing possible for you. Regardless of what your one thing is, we've all got different, what is going to make this the best year ever? We all have different ideas of what that's going to be for us individually. But this one reply right here from Nehemiah is going to help you make sure that that stays important this entire year. So here it is. Here's my reply. I am engaged in a great work, so I can't come. That's it. I'm engaged in a great work, so I can't come. Let's say that together. You ready? All right, ready? Here we go. We're going to practice it because you need to say it about 2,000 times this year. Half of those are just to yourself, okay? Half of those are to people around you. You ready? Here we go. Let's practice. 1, 2, 3. I'm engaged in a great work, so I can't come. I'm engaged in a great work, so I can't come. I'm engaged in a great work, so I can't come. What I'm doing is a great work. Sorry, I can't make it. I just can't make it. 4 times they sent him this message. Hey, you got to come meet with us. Same message. And each time, you know what reply he gave? Same reply. Hey, I'm engaged in a great work. I don't have time for you. I can't come. Can't make it. Sorry. Can't make it. Nehemiah knew that if he went to meet with them, that he would be distracted, that he would be moved off the task, that the work would grind to a halt, and the people would ultimately be victimized over and over again. So let's go back to the thing that has to happen for you this year to make this the best year ever. Did you know that there are things in your life, that there are things in my life that if we don't complete them, if we don't stay focused on them, if we don't make them a priority this year, there will be harm that comes to our lives. They will harm us, or it will harm people that we're responsible for. And if we don't stay laser focused on these things, in a sense, we are going to allow the enemy to come in and victimize us again, and victimize people that we're responsible for. If we don't stay focused, our marriage is going to get victimized again. Our kids are going to get victimized again. Our responsibility, our stewardship over what God has given us is going to fall down. And the enemy's going to come in and raid over and over again. And this is why you have to stay focused. This is why this one thing is so important. Whatever it is for you, you got to make it happen. And for you to make it happen, you've got to repeat this phrase. Hey, I'm engaged in a great work. I can't come. I can't make it. Because there's going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of opportunities that you're going to have this year to do all kinds of things. Some you've never done before. Some you've always wanted to do. But those are things that are going to keep you away from getting this one thing done. And if you're going to stay focused on getting to December 31st, looking back on this year and saying, wow, this was the best year ever, then you're going to have to repeat this phrase over and over again. Sorry, I can't make it. I'm engaged in a great work. I can't come. I can't come. For some of you, let's just be honest. It's your health, and you got to get serious about it. You got to get serious about it. My professor always said, look, you don't have anything worth saying, David, until you're 50 years old. And you need to live way past 50 so that you have, I'm 4 years away from actually having something worth saying. So if you'll just hang with me here, we're going to get really good. But some of it's true. And he's like, hey, take care of your body so that you got 40 or 50 years of something worth hearing. Some of you, your most significant work, I joked a lot with my parents, Moses didn't start, he didn't really get serious till he was 80. Told Mom, Sarah had a baby at 80. Come on. Who knows, But some of you, because you're not serious about your health, you're going to get to 51 and it's over. My mom and dad wrote a little history of their lives. My grandfather, my mom's dad, he died of a heart attack at 46. My wife reminded me of that a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, did you do that on purpose, or just I turned 46 this year and you wanted to make sure that I knew my grandfather died at 46? There is no spiritual work for you to do without a physical body, okay? And some of you just got to get serious about it this year. Some of you've got young kids, preschoolers, and everything else in life can really seem a whole lot more important than a 3-year-old. Because honestly, for most 3-year-olds, you can just give them a little bit, and that's enough for them. And that's how we tend to manage them sometimes. It's just when they become really needy, we pay attention. And you need to go into your kid's bedroom after they're asleep, and you need to look at them sleeping, or maybe you need to go into your teenager's room when they're sleeping. You need to go into your children's room while they're sleeping. You need to look at them, and you need to repeat this phrase. I'm engaged in a great work. I can't come. This is my great work. This is my great work. You need to look at your kids, and you need to quit calling them anything else than your great work. I'm engaged in this great work. God has given me this gift, and I'm a steward of it, and it's a great work. And this is what I'm engaged in. So I'm sorry I can't be there. I can't do that. Can't take advantage of that opportunity. Sorry, can't come. Some of you need to, I don't know where you keep a picture of your wife, but if you don't, you just go on her Facebook page, because there's several there. Probably on her Facebook page, there's not any pictures of her. But you need to get focused on your wife. And you need to say, you know what? This is my great work. This marriage is my great work. So I got to say no to some things. I can't come, can't make it. Because we're going out on a date, or we're just going to hang out. I'm engaged in a great work. Some of you, you're college students, high school students, you got all these opportunities to do 100 different things, all these millions of ways to invest the time that you have. And you need to focus on it enough to say, you know what? I'm engaged in this great work, so I'm going to have to say no to that. Because some of you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants, and whatever comes that day, that's what you step into. And you don't have enough focus or priority to say, this is a great work. I'm doing this, so I can't do that. And when you don't have this burden or this focus, then anything that